for the funk. We continue to toast to the one.
Welcome to this special episode of Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, and today I'm going to compare the CD and vinyl versions of the recent Sony Legacy reissue of Dirty Mind. But first, if you want to keep up to date on episodes of Amari Purple Talk and other content on the Amari Communications channel, please click like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Alright, so Dirty Mind was originally released on October 8th of 1980. While it wasn't a huge seller initially, it didn't even go gold until after the massive success of Purple Rain in 1984. But when it was released in 1980, it was a major critical success, therefore paving the way for the evolution of Prince as we know and love him throughout the decades. So for me, going back, I didn't hear this album until summer of 81. Now, I heard Soft and Wet from For You way back in summer of 78, but the radio station, it would always be in this block of songs in the rotation, where when I would tune in, I never got to hear the name of the artist. So I'm like, wow, man, that's a great song, but never got to hear who it was. Fast forward a year later, with the release of the self-titled Prince album, which was the second album, I was at a family get-together, and my uncle, who was a huge influence on me musically, and especially with my musical tastes now, was trying to, get me excited about that second Prince album. And I think what killed it was that, this was when Off the Wall was out and it was huge. And he was like, yeah, this cat, he's better than Michael Jackson. And I was like, no, no way, no. And he played, some of the tracks from the album, Want to Be Your Lover and Think Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad. I think that's as far as I got listening to it. And I just wasn't hearing it at the time. I wasn't feeling like, no way he's better than Michael Jackson. But fast forward to the summer of 81. I had a neighbor named Marvin who would bring, he would borrow albums from people and bring them to my house. Because that Christmas before, I got a Panasonic component set for Christmas. I mean, Santa Claus was in the house that year. And so it had like the cassette recorder. It even had 8-track too. But he would borrow albums and then bring them over to my house, make, dub tapes and, return the albums. So one day he brought over Tina Marie's Irons in the Fire, and he brought over this album. And like I said, I still wasn't trying to hear Prince or anything like that then. And despite my protest, I let him go on and dub the tape. And he left, he took the albums with him, but he accidentally left the cassette tape behind. So one Saturday morning or afternoon, I'm bored out of my skull. I'm, like 15, no money, no car. So where could I go? So, I'm just chilling. I listen to all my records. And I just wanted to listen to something new. So I was like, oh, dude left the tape behind. So let me go and check that out. So popped it in. First thing I listened to was Tina Marie, because I wasn't about to hear the Prince album. So I'm listening to Tina Marie's Irons in the Fire. Instantly became a fan at that moment. Then I'm like, okay, let me go and listen to this Prince album, just to, not totally judge it, but, let me listen to it and then make a final assessment of it. And so I listened, make a long story short, I listened to it. Dirty Mind with the new wave, because I was into new wave. Before MTV started, there was Don Kirshner's rock concert, and his show, they would have like the Police and then the Cars, the Pretenders, and just by watching that show, I got into that, those sounds. So here's Dirty Mind with that kind of similar vein to it. Then there was When You Were Mine, which, kind of had that Beatles thing, which I was deep into the Beatles by that point. So virtually had maybe half of everything that they had done by this point. So, and plus I was listening to a lot of Paul McCartney and was getting into John Lennon too with his solo stuff. And I'm like, cool, okay, all right. He's a little, he's got some, musical taste, a little broad musical vocabulary. I like the other two songs on side one, and then listen to side two with Uptown. And I thought, okay, that's a good song. It's kind of a little statement record there about, just freedom, whatever. That was cool. Head was the one that clinched it. Because, that was funk. That was knee deep funk. And I'm like, and which I didn't, maybe was soft and wet a little bit, but even that wasn't as deep. And with what my uncle had played from that first album, I was like, okay, but this was my lane. This was that sort of Parliament Funkadelic, kind of Rick James, Sly and the Family Stone, just that type of knee deep funk. And from that moment on, I was hooked. I was like, okay, this cat, okay, he's the real deal. And later, my friend Marvin, like maybe next few weeks, next round of albums that he brought, he ended up bringing For You and Dirty Mind. So not only did he dub a tape, I ended up dubbing a tape and was listening to those until maybe a couple of years later or a year later, went and played catch up and bought my own physical copies of For You and Prince. All right, so that is my history of the Dirty Mind album, as well as my history as a Prince fan. So now we're going to talk about the Sony Legacy reissues that were released back in February of 2022. And if you want to know my assessment of part one, where I did this album as well as For You, Prince, and Controversy, be sure to check that out on my Amari Communications channel. I was going to do a part two, but time got away from me and other commitments, so here I am. This is my first time back in a while, so here I am. So with the Sony Legacy reissues, as far as Dirty Mind goes, remember, this is not a remaster. It's not a new master from a brand new mix from the original source tapes. I'm going to assume that the Sony process, which maybe, I don't know how it works with digital, but I know as far as vinyl, Columbia Records, back before Sony bought Columbia Records, they had their own sort of pressing or mastering technique. So, which is a little different from the Record Industry Association, their standard means of mastering vinyl. So I'm not too sure about those details as far as where Sony got their tapes from. From the master or original recordings, if it's an analog to digital master, or straight from the analog tapes, or a new master mix. So I'm going to start with the vinyl version of the Sony Legacy reissue. I currently have a very old sound design sort of component set. It has a dual reverb, or not dual reverb, but dual equalizer. It has dual cassette deck. No 8-track though, no 8-track. Got it cheap at a Goodwill as I was kind of getting back into vinyl and replacing a lot of the vinyl that I lost over the years. It's a decent player. It does a pretty good job, and a lot of vinyl does sound pretty good on it. As far as Dirty Mind. To me, the vinyl on the reissue, it's lacking sort of that deep bass, not just from the bass instrument, but also bass synthesizers. It just doesn't have that deepness to it that I've been used to hearing ever since, my original vinyl copy. So that's sort of a downer for that. However, the mix does put a lot of emphasis on the vocals, especially like a lot of the background vocal nuances, like sort of that phased background vocal, where it kind of goes, "No, you get a dirty mind, 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 mind." That's brought out more to the front. But it's not deep. It just loses a lot of depth to me. Same thing with When You Were Mine. The highs kind of bring out the guitars more, which is fine. Because it's something that, wow, after 30, 40 some odd years, it's like, okay, I've never picked up on that sound before. You hear the guitars, but on this, you definitely hear them. Same thing, Do It All Night. To me, that was the best sounding on side one. Great balance with the mix on that. Got a Broken Heart Again. Really no difference between the vinyl version or my original vinyl. I haven't done a full A-B comparison with that song. Not with the original vinyl, but I did with the CD. Also, Uptown, the highs and the volume, they kind of bring out the synths a little bit, especially the guitars again as well. So, if you're a musician and or a young musician trying to learn, if you have this vinyl version and you really want to get the guitar parts on it, this will be the one to listen to, because they're brought out in the mix, or they're mixed in a way where the highs kind of give it that, that sort of nuance that you can pick up on more so with any other version, because you do have more bass on the CD and the original vinyl. With Uptown, Head, Party Up, the bass, maybe not necessarily again the tone of the bass, but the instrument itself. Again, you hear notes in it because of the way this is balanced. Again, if you're a young musician trying to figure out what the bass part is, very clear bass part. Only thing missing is sort of that deepness, that feel is what you miss with the Sony Legacy reissue of the vinyl. Now, how does that stack up against the CD version? I covered a little bit of that on the overall assessment of the first four, but I'll kind of recap it here. Definitely on the CD, which in this case was played on a 90s Sony boombox. Again, it also has an equalizer on it, but the bass is very, very prominent on the CD. More so than the original Warner Brothers CD issue, which, again, we all want to hear a remastered version at some point, and I believe we will. It may be that they may do these remasters individually as they do a special edition at some point. I was hoping personally for a remastered standalone reissue of his classic Warner Brothers era period, which again, we don't get it with this round of reissues. My guess is that they just wanted to put at least some type of quality product out for not just the, the deep Prince fans, but for, say, if somebody was, cool with Dirty Mind, Controversy, 1999, or if they were into Around the World in a Day or Love Sexy or something like that, but they hadn't kept up since, and they just want to kind of rebuild their collections, or if they're overall music fans. I think that's what this set is for, is just to kind of feel the market, because during Prince's battle with Warner Brothers, up until the time he got his master recordings back, yeah, there was no rush to put those classic albums in the market. They were just willing to just repress the same, low quality sounding CDs with it. After Prince got his masters, Prince wanted to put more emphasis on vinyl because of his love for vinyl, and that's fine. I was starting to collect some of those 2015 remasters. Now, I don't have a 2015 remastered version of the vinyl, but if I do find it, then I might do a comparison on the original vinyl, the 2015 version, and the Sony Legacy reissue version. But for now, getting back to the CD, then again, like I said, the bass is very, very prominent. Very prominent on the CD. Now, another thing with the vinyl, to me, the vinyl was very slow. And that's fine. I don't know what speed it was mixed or mastered at to create the vinyl, or if that's a standard Sony setting for their vinyl speed. But it didn't quite move as fast, or as far as I've heard. After 30 years, my ears have been programmed to listen to it a certain way. And I mean, that was with the original vinyl. The original Warner Brothers CD was no different. And the Sony Legacy reissue CD wasn't, it didn't have that issue. So I don't know, maybe it's just the copy that I got, or I don't know. Let me know in the comments how your ears are perceiving the vinyl versus the CD. Let me know. But that's just a small little nitpick of it. But again, like I said, I can't say enough about the bass on the CD version. I'm going to make a correction. It's actually the CD that sounds slower in speed than the vinyl. I have to make that correction. Other than that, how it compares to the original vinyl pressing, which is that copy right there. Like I said, I've worn the grooves out on this. Maybe this one and the earlier albums not so much, because like I said, around 1999 to Purple Rain, those were the albums I literally wore out, along with The Time and Vanity 6 at that point. So those records were getting a lot more play, since those records were just kind of playing catch up at that point. But with Purple Rain, that had completely worn out for me. 1999 had worn out, so eventually I'm going to replace those on vinyl. But since Sony now has the license to this classic Warner Brothers material, I thought it was time to have something that will help me preserve this original vinyl, and at the same time, when I bought this copy of Dirty Mind, I got it used, actually. I think I might have picked this up at Vintage Vinyl back, I don't know, maybe 83 or so. But Another reason why I wanted to replace my vinyl of Dirty Mind is because when I got it used, somebody wrote their name on it. So McAllister, I've got your vinyl. It's mine, all mine, and I'm not giving it back. I paid for it at a record store. It's mine. But at the same time, I mean, you know, you get what you can get back then, you know. And there's McAllister again. You wanted to make sure that, you know, it's just like how, you know, people used to write notes on like a dollar bill and see where it ends up on the planet. I don't know. I guess maybe, you know, of course, you know, being, you know, if McAllister, if you're a DJ, I also get why you did this too. So that way, you know, nobody bites your record, you know, like, I get it. Or, you know, or if you're not a professional DJ, then, you know, you probably went to a lot of parties and you brought your own records and you wanted to make sure you left home with your copy of Dirty Mind. I get it. This is cool. But as I'm a lot older and wiser, then in this case, kind of becoming more of a purist with my vinyl now. I prefer not to have someone's name written on it. So anyway, back to the original pressing and how this stacks up to the original pressing. I'll say this, I was surprised by the difference between the original vinyl and the Sony vinyl reissue. The original vinyl maintains slightly deeper bass, not just the instruments, but the actual tone. I mean, and that was, to me, the beauty of listening to Prince on those early records, was that deep Oberheim. I remember playing that on my Panasonic, and there would just be this, you know, he'll hit that one note where it just kind of wow. I mean, you could almost feel the room vibrate. You know, you felt it. You know, you really felt it. And that was what was disappointing about the Sony reissue, is that I didn't feel that. Now, it does put more emphasis on the songs, but it doesn't put an emphasis on, I would say, Prince's genius in recording these demos and making, you know, they're demos. And, you know, he didn't polish them up in the studio like he normally would have. And that was the beauty of it, that rawness, that deepness that you get with that sort of, you know, nowadays, well, you really can't get it much with computers, but back in the day when everything was strictly analog, you know, and that whole do-it-yourself approach, you know, you felt that was raw, and you felt it. You know, you have people like D'Angelo that try to replicate that sound all the time, where he doesn't record digitally, you know. Russell, I can't think of his engineer, Russell, oh man, forgive me for, you know, forgetting your name, bro, but Delgado, I think, Russell Delgado, whatever, correct me in the comments, folks. But that cat, you know, he never uses, or he rarely ever uses technology, you know, Pro Tools or whatever the latest DAW equipment, you know, that's available. But it's he's strictly analog. And when you listen to D'Angelo or Erykah Badu or the Commons like Water for Chocolate, that stuff, there's a rawness to it. There's definite rawness, and that was what the beauty of this album had. And you know, it's sad that at least the vinyl version didn't get that. Now, hopefully, but when there is going to be a remastered version of Dirty Mind, whether it's a standalone or whether it comes as a super deluxe edition, then I hope they fix that in the mix. I hope they, you know, fix that in the remastering of it. But definitely the CD, for me, between those two, works the best. I would say as far as vinyl, again, I don't have a 2015 uh, reissue that was done with Warner Brothers with Prince's blessing while he was still here. But I'm anxious to try to track down a copy and compare those two. So that'll be a future video. But I would say if you just need a brand new copy for whatever reason, if you're just trying to fill in gaps, if you're trying to replace your worn out original vinyl, I would say, yeah, if you got no choice, go ahead and get the Sony reissue. But if you can find the 2015 remastered version or even an original copy as far as vinyl, then definitely get that one. As far as the Sony Legacy CD reissue, to me this is an improvement over the Warner Brothers version. Now, I would say that's just probably just for here and maybe Europe. I would say if you can get a Japanese copy of Dirty Mind, that was an original Warner Brothers pressing, the sound would be a little bit better. They master and they remaster things differently. You don't get the heavy deep bass, but not everything needs that though, and they kind of mix and remaster for the overall sound, which I do have a Japanese physical copy of the Times What Time Is It, and the difference is night and day with the American Warner Brothers issue of that. So I'm hoping that that album gets a reissue, hopefully this year. But as far as Dirty Mind, I would say as far as CD, if you can get the Sony Legacy reissue, then I would definitely recommend that. And that is my assessment of the Sony Legacy reissue of Dirty Mind. What do you think? Did you pick up the vinyl? Did you pick up the CD? Did you pick up both? How does it compare? Do you have an original copy of the vinyl from way back when? Do you have a 2015 reissue from Warner Brothers with Prince's blessing? And how does the sound compare? I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on it. So leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. And that is going to end this episode of CD versus vinyl on Amari Purple Talk. Because got Sam Wilson, Captain America, guarding the Dirty Mind merchandise back there. So, is there any other Prince albums you want me to do a vinyl CD comparison on? There will be more, but let me know if there's something that you want to know about. Hopefully I have it. If not, I'll try to get it and do an episode on it. But again, click like, click subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you will be notified on anything Amari Communications. I'm Richard Cole. Create your day and create your life. Peace.